Doing a quick live test just to make sure the audio sounds good. If you are cued in and watching, let me know in the chat if uh, if you hear me all right. I'll move this microphone a little bit and start here in about 4 minutes. Thanks. Hello. Thanks for joining the stream. If you're there, this is all new. This is the second week of In Exile Media being a thing. Um, it's been a lot of fun. I don't expect a ton of people to join the stream, although I did go out and push it to all my friends. Um, but this is something I'm just going to do consistently every Friday. Uh, the idea is that it's an easy way to build content to put out to the web, to allow everybody to have a chance to, all my customers, if they wanted to ask a question and get an answer. If there's just something you're dealing with, but you don't want to necessarily pay for the consulting time, you just need, an avenue to get some advice on something. This is the opportunity to do it. I want to say thanks to everybody who reached out, all the Main Street clients who, when they heard the news, a lot of people sent me messages of encouragement and said they were excited for me. I just want to say I appreciate you guys. One of the reasons that I wanted to pursue this avenue was because I have like the best clients, and I definitely didn't want to do anything that was going to ever put them, out to have to find a new developer or a new person to work with. I really enjoy what I do, and so this has been fun, and getting to be behind the wheel of management and making all the marketing decisions and things like that. It's a lot of fun. Keeps me busy. So I just want to say thank you guys. So how this show works, pretty much every Friday at 10:30 a.m. unless I find a better time, I'm going to just carve that time out to do a live broadcast. I'll post links in Facebook. Eventually, I'd like to just do the live straight to Facebook, but since it's a new Facebook page, not many people even know about it yet. We're doing it on YouTube right now, but the goal is just to have an opportunity for you to post questions beforehand. You can email me questions for that. You can comment on this video. Even once this video goes into the archives, you can leave comments on the video that I'll address the next week. Just about any way that you find an avenue to ask me a question, I'll try to respond to it the next week when we do a live show. But that's pretty much it. I'm committed to it. It's going to be pretty like this, just low key. I'm not expecting any kind of serious level of professionalism here, but I just want to give an opportunity to address things and give you guys some free advice on stuff. So today, I want to talk to you about social media, and I'm probably going to go pretty quick. This will probably take about 15-20 minutes. If you do have any questions while I'm talking, feel free to hit up the chat on the YouTube channel. It should be on my website, and it's also on the YouTube link if you follow it there. And I'll try to address those as they come up. So I have a love-hate relationship with social media. In the early days of things like Twitter and Facebook, it really seemed like it was magic. Like you could reach a lot of people. And I think this is true of any technology. When it's new, when you're an early adapter, there is a real opportunity there to reach a lot of people for very low cost. Like the time management involved is pretty simple, and you can just, if there's a new social network and you can get on it and talk to people, there are great opportunities there. But we're not in that era anymore. We now have Facebook's been around for a long time. It's people. More people have a Facebook account than almost utilize email, and it's kind of crazy. And for a while there, email was really dipping down. People didn't want to check their emails. If you want to get a hold of somebody, you get a hold of them on on Facebook, or that's probably the primary one. Most people, you can find them. If I need to hunt somebody down to contact them, and I can't, they're not responding to my emails, sometimes I'll go to Facebook and I'll send that person a message and say, hey, just so you know, trying to get a hold of you about your website, you've got a problem, and I don't know who the contact person is. So we're at a point now where social media is saturated, especially on the big platforms. So when I'm talking about social media, I'm talking about the big platforms, not a new up and comer. Those are a variety of opportunities. Some are hit and miss. I'm big on the Discord community. Discord is a social media platform for gamers, but it is a very good utility for communication and for community. I find it a lot healthier than Facebook and Twitter and things like that. But every social media platform has their purposes and their communities, the things that are actively engaged on it. When it comes to marketing, if you've got a business and you're thinking, well, I've been told I need to be active on social media. What does that mean, and what's the benefit of it? Well, it's important to understand, like, social media platforms, they play a certain game. And so their goal is to get you to consume as much social media as possible so that they can build eyeballs for ad revenue. In playing that game, they're playing that game with both you and your consumers. So they want you to produce enough content to keep your consumers interested, and they want you to also spend a ton of time on the platform trying to interact with consumers to get your eyeballs as well. Like that, it's all a game of synergy to try to build as much of an audience to it as possible, which is why there's a lot of criticism about the addictive nature of social media and how they design it in such a way that you feel the need to come back to it. And they really play on that whole, notification systems of making you check boxes and make you feel like, I have people who are interested in me. One of the ones that cracked me up is LinkedIn, because it provides, and I'm not even sure if it's automated or not, but I get messages from people, especially like when I started the new company. You get messages, people saying, congratulations on your promotion. And see, I wouldn't call starting a new company a promotion. It is, but it's weird. And I realize that some of those messages are just completely automated. They build a false sense of community, just so that you as a consumer feel like you're being engaged by people. Therefore, you want to spend more time on the platform. It's really weird, and you just have to remember that's the game they're playing. So if you want to compete in social media, meaning you want to have the broadest reach possible, the only way to do that is to spend a ton of time in the system, meaning posting regular content every day, sometimes twice a day. Depends on who your audience is and how big you want your reach to be. It means doing things like live streams on Facebook, building, you're going to be spending a lot of time. We're talking hours a day dealing with Facebook and dealing with each platform you work with, making sure you're putting out content. It's also important. There's a lot of systems that will let you post to it, and then it'll send out messages to different platforms. I can post to Instagram, and it'll automatically go onto Twitter. And I set that up recently because honestly, I just don't care about Twitter. It's just not my community. It's a weird online thing where everybody screams into the void. And it's great for customer support. Like, it's a great, if you need to get a hold of me, you should be able to go to my Twitter and tweet to me, and we can interact. The toxic part of that is the fact people use that to publicly engage with you. They're not okay. They don't want to just have a conversation with you. They want to have a conversation in public with you. That's kind of weird. It doesn't breed the best customer service experience, if you ask me. But it's used a lot that way. People, when they get upset with a company, they won't even go to the company and send them an email for support or grievances. They will just go flame them on Twitter and get a response. But there are systems that will send out to multiple accounts, but that is not social media management. Like, you don't have a good presence in those communities. You're just spewing more stuff out in different directions. You're sending messages, and if that message is a coherent marketing message, that's not a terrible thing to do. But if you really want to compete on those platforms for the free audience, then they're expecting a higher level of engagement than just your message being spewed out through different channels. They're expecting interaction. They want you to tweet back to people, reply to people's replies. Those kind of things are what's going to tell them this person builds community here, builds more interaction, keeps more eyeballs. We'll keep pushing them up in the ranking and extend their reach. Especially true of Facebook. The more you interact, the more. So if you have an automated system, we used to build those. That's a thing that you can make. Each of these systems have APIs where you can post to them, and you could have it to where you just post one thing. I used to have everyone's blog set up back in the day where you'd post a blog post and it would go out to all your social media platforms. Problem with that strategy was that the Facebook didn't appreciate it. Twitter didn't appreciate it. They don't see that as interaction, and although that content goes up and you have a presence on those platforms, your reach is limited because they don't see you as an active engager. So if you really want to play the game, the only way to do it is to constantly be using it, and it becomes a pitfall of this is going to consume a little bit of your life. So here's what I'm going to propose. moving forward when it comes to social media. For some people, you can play the game. I would say community organizations, uh, churches and nonprofits, you should probably play the game. Mostly because churches and nonprofits don't value people's time as much as they do money. If you have an employee who spends 6 hours a day on Facebook, that seems like a good investment. Whereas you probably wouldn't take that employee's salary and put it towards Facebook advertising, because then your books would look a little more like you're spending more overhead on advertising and stuff, and that might not appeal to your donors. So there's a lot of cases where a nonprofit will spend a lot of man hours on a thing that they could have just advertised or done something different. But honestly, that's okay. And honestly, you need the engagement because you're dealing with things like volunteers, grassroots efforts, and those kind of campaigns. You really need those interactions. If you're a business and you sell a product or you sell a service, sometimes those interactions are helpful, but for the most part, what you're doing on social media is you're just pushing out sales tactics. You're just trying to get people to interact with you so they'll buy your product, so they'll, pay for your services. In those situations, I just don't see it being as fruitful. The main problem is the only way to win that game is to just spew information out to the web. You can't just post the same meme every day and expect the algorithm to see you as a benefit to the community. You need to be engaging people. And the trouble with that is it causes you to vary your message. So your marketing becomes pretty much a mess. So if you're serious about your brand and your identity, I would highly recommend going with the direction of speaking a little bit less on social media and paying for advertising, because they have a system. You can promote your posts, you can push advertising onto those mediums, and nowadays, because those services are so saturated with users, I mean, if you're a regular user of Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, you will notice the amount of sponsored posts nowadays is nearly 1-to-1. Like, you're scrolling down and every human thing you read from a person, about 2 of those, and then you're going to get an ad, and sometimes greater than that. It all depends on who they're talking to and how much they feel like they can get away with, but they are really pushing ads. But on the business side of it, those ads are well placed. They didn't have to fight for that placement as far as engaging with an audience to a point that they could get that reach. You just literally pay dollar for dollar for the reach. And investment wise, if you consider man hours versus the cost of man hours, advertising on those platforms is very reasonable. You can also be very specific about your reach, about who you want to target, whereas you can't do that with your engagement. You might be engaging with people in parts of the world that you can't even support, or that can't buy your product. And that engagement's not really benefiting you as much as the targeted advertising would, because you're reaching new clients and new customers. So that's one of my things that I want to focus on when it comes to marketing when I'm talking with clients, is just being realistic about those saturated social media markets. There's a lot of people out there that will promise you a crazy outcome for investment if you'll go and use their service. First of all, their service isn't you. They don't speak with your language. They don't necessarily even know the full extent of what you do. If you're hiring out your social media, you're really running quite a risk. And I don't know if you've seen some of the fallback of people who just let a volunteer run their social media and post things that eventually get them in the news, but not for good reason. There's a real liability in communicating so much that your marketing becomes a mess and you're saying things that aren't really well thought out. Honestly, I'm becoming of the opinion that so many people when it comes to marketing are ignoring the words in marketing. Like, as a graphic designer, we design things, and often we leave spots of lorem ipsum where people will plug in the text. So if you said, let's build a great graphic to send out in social media to build interaction, oftentimes you would find something that looked good without even being super concerned with the actual language of it. What most businesses and even nonprofits and churches need to do is focus on the language of what you're trying to communicate. Maybe coming up with sound bites, just really small snippets of dialogue that you want to communicate to your audience. And it's not a library. You're not creating 150 different things or enough to post once a day, every day of the year. You're creating maybe 4 marketing efforts that are just very concise sentence or two, and using that strategy to build all your advertising. So you're very concise with your message. Those little things like that are huge. Will build upon each other. If your message is, let's say you're a homeless shelter and you're a nonprofit and you're trying to solve the homeless crisis in your area. If your marketing campaign was centered around, let's say, statistics, if you just said, like, let's say your goal is to build sympathy for your donors, for people to realize there's a problem and to connect to it. If you just pointed out that most people live their life, 1 paycheck from being homeless or 2 paychecks from being homeless, little statistics like that, you could make that marketing copy, put that out. If it's consistent across all your social media platforms, all your advertising, your print media, and on your website, because people have to see a message so many times before they're really gonna consider it. We see so much stuff every day, so many things, even great things we pass through on social media that we say, oh, that's cute, and we move right past it. And we're engaging with so much. We need to see something in different avenues and different times to be able to really engage with it. So when it comes to how you deal with social media, except for the few instances where you're building a real community online, I would say churches can do that. Churches, you can tell jokes every once in a while. You can have internal insider gab. It'd be fun. You can have behind the scenes content to a nonprofit that might be interesting, but this is all stuff you got to really think about consequences for it. You don't want to show a behind the scenes for a nonprofit where the entire staff team is, going paintballing and people start asking the question, well, is this on the donor's dime? You want to display the targeted face of the company and the organization that you want people to know you as. And I find that's better if you're very consistent with those messages, and also just focusing on those elevator statements of who you are, what you do, or the specific targeted purpose for your marketing, and keeping that consistent across social media. And don't worry about playing the game. I honestly think that the game at this point for most people is unwinnable. There are some platforms that just, once they get so saturated, even Google AdWords are very useful for service businesses and companies who sell products. When you just want to find the people in your community, in your area, that are asking to buy something online, you really want to connect to those people. You need those AdWords. But for things like real estate and insurance, those AdWords get very expensive. And can really become a serious cost because the market's so saturated with competition that those prices get elevated. So, that's one of the things with saturated markets. Now, none of that really keys into new communities, new interactions, opportunities. Anytime something's ground floor, there's an opportunity to get involved with it. It might not pay off because not all, platforms develop into the thing that they all dream they would. But I think things like Vine, people really underestimated the usefulness and purpose of Vine, and it really took off, and a lot of people became famous because of Vine videos. At the same time, though, the community did die, didn't have a good profit system. But there are things like that pop up that I think tactical small businesses and groups should be concerned with, to keep an eye on, because those are opportunities to invest in a community, to put your message out there for free and to get a lot of eyeballs. And sometimes it just requires being a little bit lax about your how you present yourself. But there's a lot of benefit to those. But I think my core message here is invest more in your message. The message matters more than the volume. So what social media wants is volume. They want you to post a lot of stuff. They want you to stay interacted with it. But your message needs to stay clear. And if your message ever gets watered down through the amount of stuff you're having to create or push out in social media platforms, you're sacrificing your message for the volume, and it's not a good choice. You want to stay on target with your message, because in the end, people aren't going to be convinced or have their minds changed or consider you and your value based upon your presence. It's going to be your message that changes minds. It's going to be your message that conveys a sense of action or urgency to what it is you're informing people of. So when you want, if you stay on message and have a message that compels an action, and you're consistent with that, that's going to lead to increased donations, increased sales, increased activity from your audience. Whereas just having a great presence with a ton of posts doesn't really inspire people as to what to do, and waters it down. So invest in your message. Consider not playing the game. Also, there's a sense, especially for me, I feel a great sense of responsibility when it comes to what we're doing to promote ourselves and our business. Social media, and I've seen it personally in my own life. I've seen people their lives just get destroyed by social media, not because of anything bad happening, but just the addictive behavior and psychological problems it causes for people, because of the nature of the way those systems are designed to be addictive, to create an idea that you present yourself a certain way to the world that doesn't have to be real. Like you can always post pictures of your vacation area and your awesome adventures in life, and never talk about the bad things that happen, and it becomes a weird thing for people, and it's not super healthy. It's not the community that people try to market it as. So you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a part of that system, or do you want to play a different game? I think there's a benefit to not playing that game and to rising above it a little bit. Now, I don't have a problem with advertising on it, because maybe you offer real connection. Maybe your business has great customer service. If you could get people to pass that platform and actually contact you, maybe they would have a great experience, a healthy experience. If you're a nonprofit, maybe you can call people to action in such a way that benefits their life, but not just taking advantage of their weakness on social media to do so. So there's a little bit of a moral reason why you shouldn't just play the game on social media to build interaction and try to extend your reach. That said, there is definitely an algorithm to do it, and if you fit the model of that, you need to have that social media interaction, you need to be building community online. There's definitely ways to do it and good ways to do it, and if you need help with it, I'll be glad to help build that strategy. I'm pretty familiar with the algorithms and how it all works. I'm just not a fan of it, but I think that's kind of important, because some people will oversell you on the benefit of all these things. There's a whole breed of marketers out there that are, promising some weird level of success from social media marketing. And I'm not saying it doesn't have an impact on your reach, but I'm not convinced, and I've never really seen any data that shows that reach develops into sales the same way that good marketing does. And good marketing is sticking on message. It's being super consistent and not just turning up the volume for the sake of getting that reach. So if you could show your vision and purpose to 20 people and have 10 of them react in a way that follows your call to action, or you could show it to hundreds of people and none of them reach out to you, none of them make an actual connection. And I think that's pretty much where we're at in social media today. Is you can have a false sense of reach that matters, but you have the same sense of reach that everyone else on that platform has. And the truth is, no one's really doing much besides continuing to scroll through the platform. Reaching people in such a way that causes them to take action requires a little bit of artistry in your communication. Most of that is done through words and the compelling way you tell a story or that you engage people. Lately, I've been keeping up with what's his name? Donald Miller. He has a great little marketing company. Not little, it seems like a really cool company. But I think it's like the website's like 5-minute marketing makeover. I'll look it up and post a link, tweet it out or something. It's just 3 little videos, but good content, and I've really enjoyed keeping up with him and what he does. He's always been about telling a story, and it's something I relate to real well as far as when it comes to your life and your vision and what you're doing, what your business is doing. What kind of story does that tell? Most people connect with stories better than they do good graphics or a compelling meme. So something to keep in mind. If you've stuck with me through this, appreciate it. And I will be here every Friday at 10:30 until a time changes. And if you have any questions, comment on this video below. Tweet to me if you want. I probably won't see it right away. Go follow the Facebook page, facebook.com/nxilmedia, or you can just go to nxilmedia.com and check all the social media links and follow me on all those. I promise not to be spammy. I'm going to try to stick on message and practice what I preach. Appreciate you guys for queuing in, and it's been fun. I will see you next week. Bye. Oh, I should have got all this ready. See ya.